Gibson and Associates, the appellant, Kelly Properties LLC owner, property located at 1001 Riverside Drive, requesting an item D appeal in the CL and R10 districts to change from one nonconforming use, which was a grocery store, to another nonconforming use, dialysis clinic. Referred to the board under section 1740, 650D, the appellant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740, 180D. Members, just to read from the code briefly. The zoning code at 1740-650, letter 3 talks about the non-conforming use of a building designed and constructed for non-residential activities, and I think the photographs will bear that out. This was not built as a home. May be changed from one non-conforming use to another upon a determination by the Board of Zoning Appeals that the new non-conforming use is will be more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use. So that's your standard of review for today. Any questions about that? Okay. The subject property that you see here is located on the east margin of Riverside Drive, just north of Rosebank. The subject property is split zone between CL and R10. The aerial photograph of the site, the vast majority of this structure sits in the R10 zone district. This structure was formerly, was this Piggly Wiggly in the area here at this location? The appellants are proposing to change this use from that Piggly Wiggly to a dialysis clinic. We would classify dialysis clinics as outpatient clinics under the zoning code.
Joey, would this meet zoning requirements for either of the zoning?
It does not. Well, it does. Obviously, it does not for R10. Thank you for the very relevant question. I should have had prepared. I figured you would ask me that.
Oh, Joey.
Let's see. Outpatient clinic is permitted in the CL portion of the zoning district. So on this site plan, it would be, that dashed line running north to south where my cursor is. So that part of the building is actually conforming to the zoning district. The majority from this line back here is the non-conforming portions of the building.
And this is all, are these individual parcels or?
It is one contiguous parcel today. That's that blue line that you see there on the drawing. That's the current property boundary.
I'm assuming the zoning was established before the property was combined?
Potentially, I would say probably after that property has been combined. I don't have direct access to the tax assessor site to see when that parcel existed.
Okay.
But I'm going to believe it predates this current zoning layout that's here.
Okay.
That's a site plan submitted. Again, the zoning boundary line is going to be that dashed line right through there. And I'm going to come back to this site plan here in just a second. This is a view of the subject property. Riverside is over to the left-hand side. Rosebank is directly behind me looking north on the property. View around the property starting in the upper right corner, again, just panning to the right from the first slide. A view all the way to the east, to the southwest, across river. This is Riverside Drive. Rosebank is in the foreground. And then a view on the northwestern part of the property. And that's basically all I've got for my portions of it. Any questions for me before we turn it over to the appellant? Okay. Seeing none, sir, if you will come forward to the table. The appellants have given us a PowerPoint presentation. I'll be switching over to that now. And again, just a reminder.
George, before we get started, I guess I need to make a disclosure. I and a associate of mine had expressed an interest in this property back early part of the year. We did not bid on it. We did not get it. I just wanted to show that. And I had visited the property, know something about it, so just want to disclose that. I didn't have any financial interest in it, but I'll lay that out there for everybody if there's any objections. you know.
That's noted for the record. With that, gentleman to your right, we talked about before the meeting, also to the gentleman here in opposition to the clock there to your right. I will keep time for you. That's the amount of time you have remaining to present your case, and rebuttal time should you wish it. All right. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. On the tables in front of you, the speak buttons, be sure to pull those microphones toward you and identify yourself and make your presentation, please.
Sure. All right, I'm Sam Sarbacher. I'm with Oman Gibson Associates. First and foremost, want to thank the staff and the board for accommodating this special request. Next slide, please. So Oman Gibson Associates is a full-service development firm located here in Nashville, Tennessee. We would ultimately own the building, and we would have a tenant. The next slide, please. Our tenant would be Fresenius Medical Care. They're represented here by Craig and Ashley, sitting to my right. Fresenius Medical Care is the largest renal dialysis provider in the country. They have over 2,000 locations throughout the U.S. and North America, and over 50,000 employees. Again, they would be the building tenant. They're currently in a location around the corner, not too far. It's on 604 Gallatin Avenue, and they would be relocating to this facility. Next slide, please. What we have here are some before pictures. Currently, the building is unoccupied. As Joey had mentioned earlier, it was a former Piggly Wiggly. It's in need of some upgrades and some TLC. We would reuse the entire existing structure, come in on the inside, and basically gut the interior out and completely renovate it for use as a dialysis clinic. These are some after shots of what we would be looking at. Again, substantially similar to what's there now, a few different features. One of the main prominent features being the drive-through canopy to protect our patients from rain. But again, the same theme of brick on the outside, metal overhang. Next slide, please. About our business operations, again, it'd be the relocation of an existing renal dialysis operation into this building. It would operate Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. There'd be 9 employees. The facility would have roughly 50 patients at opening, up to 25 patients a day. There would be 16 dialysis treatment chairs. In terms of traffic, it would be very light. A lot of patients, some patients drive themselves, a lot are dropped off by others, and patient times are 4 to 6 hours. So not a lot of coming and going traffic, the staff coming and leaving, once a day, and then the patients being there for an extended period of time. Next slide, please. So things we're not a heavy traffic generator by any means. Again, people come and stay for a significant amount of time. There's not a lot of turnover. It's not a walk-in clinic of any type. We don't generate really any kind of measurable amount of noise, odors, or things that would otherwise be viewed as obnoxious or disruptive. So here's a copy of our floor plan. Basically, the top right is the corner that you saw from the exterior there, from Joey's picture. The entrance would actually be on the kind of the bottom right. So you get dropped off at the entry canopy up there, walk into the entryway there. The treatment area is in the upper right-hand corner of the layout there. And most of the other areas are for staff support and building support, things of that nature. Next slide, please. So this is a copy of the site plan. Again, the site's going to stay substantially similar to what it is now. The parking's really not going to change for the most part. There'll be a couple of spots reconfigured just for some handicap parking, things of that nature. We do have the drop-off canopy. All the deliveries and things are going to stay in the same place that they were with the prior Piggly Wiggly use. We did meet with the community. We had a community meeting that Peter Westerholm, our councilman, attended. A lot of good Q&A, a lot of good talk back and forth. Basically, the bottom line there was a lot of people were very supportive of this project. This is something that is very important for the people's lives. It sustains their lives, these people that are receiving this treatment, and we want to provide the utmost convenience to these folks. They've got to be there for such a dramatic amount of time. We don't have to create any complexities in terms of having to find a parking spot or having to drive a great deal of time. So this location is very, very close to the patient base, and we feel it's very important to provide them the utmost of convenience. And a lot of the people in attendance at that meeting saw that value. We were able to get a letter of support. I'm not sure if you have a copy of that, but he did email that to you all. I don't believe I have a hard copy with me, but he forwarded me a copy.
Well, be sure to just send that over to us. I don't
Okay.
show it in the file, but
Okay. Beyond that, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're looking to do. Are there any questions?
Sure, I've got two. How long has the Piggly Wiggly been out of business? Approximately.
We were talking beforehand, and I believe it to be about 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay, and I mean, just, I'm not asking for an expert opinion, but I would assume a Piggly Wiggly would have a lot more traffic than a dialysis center.
Absolutely, dramatically more.
Okay, thank you.
What is the typical lease term, and what is this lease term?
I believe we're drafting up a 15-year term.
Our lease agreements vary from 10 to 15 years.
Sorry, can we get your names?
Certainly, I'm Craig Stallings. I'm a project manager with our Real Estate and Construction Services Division, and it's my responsibility to either renovate or build the new clinics as needed.
I'm Ashley Williams. My background is nursing, but I'm a director of operations. This is one of my 7 clinics that I have in the city and surrounding areas.
Thank you.
I think we want to apologize to you all, too. You were here, sat through the whole meeting last Thursday, and our day got shortened a little bit. We had to vacate, didn't have a quorum, and so apologize and thank you for coming back on the day off.
No problem.
Likewise, sir, we appreciate you affording us this opportunity.
I have a quick question for Joey. I don't know if it's an abandoned alley that runs on the north side of the property. The building seems to be over the property line.
it did encroach into the city's alley. The Metro Council had filed through legislation the abandonment
Okay, so it
of
is
the portions of encroachment
Okay.
and releases of the
I
easement.
just want to make sure we didn't have to deal with that today.
It did. As part of our review, we made note for the building permit that at least our drawings reflected potentially that when they built this Piggly Wiggly however many years ago, that it looked like it did partially get built upon the city's alley, and their survey, I believe, bared that out. But the council has passed legislation that abandoned those encroachments.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask, back in what used to be the loading dock area and the freezers, is there any activity going on there? How often do you have deliveries, or do you have deliveries?
We do have deliveries of 2 types, supply and reconstitution. Those occur twice a week. The deliveries are either in a tractor trailer, probably 40-foot trailer, or just a box truck, depending on the need at the particular time. And we have pretty much our own shipping division, so it depends on which piece of equipment they happen to send. Deliveries are offloaded pretty expediently. Everything is compartmentalized and palletized, so they just make a drop, and that truck is usually off-site within 8 or 10 minutes. Our technical operations staff come out and bring it into the warehouse and then close up the building. Other deliveries, or more of a pickup, is the medical waste pickup through a third-party vendor, typically someone like Stericycle or whomever. And that's pretty common in the industry.
And that's containerized?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's containerized within the building before it goes outside.
So is there any well, I'm assuming everything I'm seeing outside the main building is outdoor. Is there any outdoor storage or?
No. Everything's secured within the building.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions, you'll have 8 minutes and 56 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you.
The opposition can come forward.
All right, you're all set, sir.
Billy Caldwell. I live 2 doors north of the Piggly Wiggly. Resident there, 22 years, homeowner. My house paid it off last payment this May. And my main concerns would be the starting time, 5 a.m. That's off early on a Saturday morning. You know, those trucks that back up, they have that excessive beep. It's really loud. It's really noisy. And, you know, once a week the dumpster truck picks up and he's like 4 a.m. and, you know, you're waking up on that. My other concern would be my property value going down or going up. I'd be happy if it went up, but, you know, that concerns me. The smell, you know, you got a medical facility. It's, you know, the wind is always blowing out of the south, you know, just most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time. So, you know, I'm concerned about the smell, not so much at the beginning, but, you know, as years go by, you know, the smell increasing. Yeah, those are my main concerns. That the noise, you know, it was just brought to my attention that the majority of the building's not zoned for this dialysis clinic. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's why we're here with this hearing.
I thought it was just a change from a Piggly Wiggly to a dialysis clinic. And, you know, it's those are my main concerns is, you know, that Saturday morning, you know, there's a mechanic shop across the street. He's been there forever. They start about 8:39 and, you know, they're never banging on anything after 5:30. The Piggly Wiggly, it was such a small grocery store, and, you know, I've seen it change hands at least 10 times since I was there, you know, from a Foodland to a Piggly Wiggly. Even some Japanese people bought it and tried to sell hair there and along with groceries, and it just never did a whole lot of business. And the parking lot there was never anybody parked on the outer rim of the parking lot. There was always a row of cars in front of the building, sometimes on the side, but it was never that busy. No wonder they went out of business. But yeah, those are my main concerns. You know, a medical facility, I wouldn't want any kind of a medical facility in my neighborhood, you know, or funeral home or crematorium. You know, would y'all want one next door to y'all's house? That's what I asked today. It's, you know, it's just inappropriate, I think, for the neighborhood. I know they only sent out notices people within 300 feet, which it's not going to be but a couple of people right there, so you're not going to have much opposition. But that's pretty much it. You know, property value, the smell, the traffic of those trucks and the beeping, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions?
None.
If I recall, we had an appellant across the corner, across, what's that side, Rose Bank or whatever? We had a case here one year or so ago about that, and there were discussions concerned about the supermarket that had been robbed a number of times and crime there and that sort of thing. Don't you feel like this sort of facility that's proposed here would be far better than the potential conflicts at the...
All of the other properties like McGavick in Riverside, Porter in Riverside, Eastland and Porter, all those properties have grown up with condos and, multi-unit housing and eateries and all kinds of little restaurants and stuff, but there's no medical facilities in there. There's an acupuncture place, and I don't think that's considered really, but, I don't think anybody at those corners wants a medical facility of this, like this one on there, along with their eateries. Nobody wants to come out and see some dying person getting out of a medical van or an ambulance, while they're having dinner at their little outdoor seating at the cafes. And I know there's catty cornered across the way. There's an 8-unit condo going in, and they're tearing down that house. And I see the corner growing up like it did at Eastland and Porter, and at Porter and Riverside and McGavock and Riverside. Those places have really grown since I've been there, and they've really gotten nice, but there's no medical facilities. It's all eateries and cafes and even bars, which, I've been sober for 22 years, but, I'm not against anybody having a eating and establishment and even a bar there in the neighborhood, but it's not one of the best corners. There are 3 little houses right there. My house was built in the 20s. I bought it from I think the original owners, and the man on the north side of me, he grew up in my house. He's 84. I don't think he was notified. He would probably come down, maybe in opposition or maybe not, but anytime I have too much firewood in my yard, he calls codes. Codes come out immediately that day. If you do anything in your yard that he's like, no, I grew up in that house. Disrespect me, Billy. But Mr. Nicholson and the guy closest to them, he built the backside of his house up and rented it out, and he don't even live there. So. But I think as far as opposition, I'm only one within 300 feet, so voice of the minority. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So the items up for discussion is, as I scratched them down, was the starting time, dumpster service time, property values, and I think they've addressed the smell. But those were the only 4 that I got. If anybody else has any others.
I think first and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Caldwell. We'd met prior to this meeting and after the last meeting and had several good discussions, and definitely appreciate his time. In terms of the starting time, I'd probably defer that one to Ashley, but regarding the dumpster, any type of facility that operates here is going to have some level of dumpster service. I think that's going to be a reasonable expectation. I don't think we're going to generate any more or less trash than anyone else. In terms of noise, there is railroad tracks that run very, very near this facility that generate a significant amount of noise, and I don't think that we would even be in the same league as that. It's fairly significant in terms of noise. What were the other?
Just the early starts and the odors.
Yeah,
Starting time, dumpster, property value, and the smell.
And property value, thank you. This building is in desperate need of some TLC in the immediate future, and I would have the opposite concern that if something doesn't happen with this facility pretty quickly, that it's going to be in a pretty dilapidated state in a pretty short order, and I think that would have a pretty negative impact on property values. I think that our improvements that we're planning on making would definitely improve that area and improve the neighborhood. Ashley, do you mind speaking about starting time?
We have to prepare for dialysis, so we have our staff come in around 5. It's usually 5 people. They would come in an hour and a half, get the clinic ready. So our first patients usually go on around 6:30 a.m., and they're staggered in. They come in 3 patients at a time every 30 minutes. So it's not like there's a lot of traffic there at the same time. So they're normally all on by 8 o'clock. So it's not actually 5 when the patients come, it's 6:30.
And, pardon me, but with regards to the delivery hours, those are during the midday, typically probably between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So there would be very seldom, if never, any deliveries after those hours. Those are,
And is that also on Saturday or just Monday through Friday?
it would be Saturday if they're warranted, but typically as it's planned out and coordinated, they're Monday through Friday. But there would not be an opportunity, or we wouldn't see deliveries or pickups in the early hours or late in the evening.
For the existing clinic that we have, I've been over it about 2 years, and we have had no Saturday deliveries.
Go ahead.
But with regards to the dumpster, typically we have to put them in by code or typically municipality requirements. We've got very little solid waste material that leaves the building. Most of ours is either discharged to the system or is picked up to a medical waste company. And most of our documents are secured and either shredded and handled in that way or kept on site. So there's very little need for a dumpster. But we typically have to provide one just to satisfy the requirements.
So it would be used less than a grocery store.
Absolutely. On some of ours, we just have residential style where you have the curb push outs and they come out and hook up to the back of the truck, something that simple. So there's just not that, doesn't warrant that much need.
Just in closing, what Joey had mentioned about what we're judging here today in terms of what the code says, are we more or less conforming than the prior use being the grocery store? In terms of traffic, significantly less traffic user. One of the board mentioned crime and the potential for crime. It's not really a cash exchange facility, so I think that risk goes down. And again, odors, noise, just general traffic deliveries, et cetera. I think in all those categories that we're definitely a lesser impact than the prior use.
With that, I'm going to move that we close the public hearing and enter into discussion.
So I don't know if the Chancery Court would agree with me, should this ever be appealed, but it seems like, we're really dealing with the R10 portion of this. And all the activity on that part of the site, at least in the exterior of the building, traffic, deliveries, garbage, all of that is less. And there seems to be no change on the rest of the site, with the exception of possibly less traffic. And since we have a fairly vague definition of impact, it would appear to me to be less of an impact than a retail grocery store.
I would agree with you. And so I would move that the board approve the proposed change to the non-conforming use of a building designed and constructed for non-residential activities because the board finds that the new non-conforming use will be more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Board approves the case on a vote of 4-0. With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned. Thank you.